fairly new, and because of that, that means there are large parts of the world that don't know what's going on yet. So we're taking an aggressive posture to do this live. As you're going to see during our presentation, we can do this remote, virtually. In fact, normally when we do these type of educational introductions to what we do, we're doing them to an audience of people. The people could be 500, 600 miles away. So what we thought we'd do is take a more hands-on, high-touch approach and bring it to the local community, local business owners, where we could explain what's going on around the world and also build a little bit of a personal relationship so that you know somebody local that's involved with these big trends that are happening in marketing, so you have somebody that you can reach out to personally. So part of it is to help build a relationship with us, the local team, but the other part, as we're going to jump into, is just to help you understand some ideas and approaches to leveraging some breakthroughs in technology that really give you a much stronger position or ability to position yourself in the marketplace. So we always like to just start off by level setting the conversation as to kind of where we are right now, collectively. I know you guys come from a lot of different industries, which is always great, but there are just some fundamental changes that has happened that has changed everything. It's sort of like an earthquake. You know, when an earthquake happens, it shakes up every business that's there, right? And it shakes them up equally the same. Well, the earthquake that has happened in terms of technology that has going to have a big impact on marketing and your ability to build a brand started quite a while ago now, although it seems like it was yesterday. It was almost 15, 16, 17 years ago when the internet started to just kind of take off. And at the time, people didn't really understand what the implications were going to be. They knew it had the potential to be something big. And some people thought it was a trend, by the way. But it was one of those things, like a little ripple in a pond, that just never stopped. And it just kept going and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And now, fast forward 15 years later, that has caused a lot of things that are critically important to how you run your business. One is, it's connected everyone. Everyone is now connected. Everyone on the planet is pretty much connected. Two is giving people access to almost all information. You know, in fact, most people think it's every bit of information is now available, and maybe you can debate that back and forth. But the reality of it is now everybody has access instantly to more information than they've ever had in the history of humanity. And because of that, we now have the most educated market, the most educated buyer in the history of the world. And what I mean by that is pretty simple. Now when people decide or they think they want to buy something or they think they're interested in something, 15 years ago, they would have had to rely upon a representative of that object or that service, a salesperson, to educate them on what they had and how it worked and how it was different than the competition. Now, it's a click of a mouse on their computer or on their cell phone. And they instantly get unlimited information on the products, the services, all the competition, what other people think about your product or service, all these opinions. So now, because of that, people both perceive they are educated on the world, and quite honestly, they are educated on the world. So this changes the dynamics. This changes your role as a marketer. Because the access is so easy now, it's become very noisy in the marketplace. So I'm going to present to you the problem we're going to address today. And the problem can be oversimplified to be there's a very noisy marketplace now. There's a million people screaming that they do what you do. There's a million people screaming that I'm exactly the same as you, I'm better than this person. There's a million people screaming all day long the same stuff. So the point of this next half an hour, we're going to do it way less than 40 minutes. So the point of this half an hour or so will just be to help you get some ideas of how you can break through the clutter. How you can get your name heard above the roar of the crowd. How can you somehow, when everything is so easy to do and everybody has the same level of access, how can you stand out? How can you stand out, be heard, and more importantly, be remembered? So that's kind of our agenda today. We're going to walk you through some slides as we go along. You know, because of this noisy world we live in, regardless of what business you're in, whether it's automotive or healthcare or home improvement or restaurant business or fitness or education, regardless of what core business you're in, a growing percentage of what you have to do on a daily basis can be summed up by promoting. Almost everybody now is being pushed into this role of being a promoter of what it is you do. And the reason why that is because you're forced to. Because if you're not promoting yourself, you're in the back of the line of all the other people that are promoting themselves. And because so many people are promoting, the perception of the buyer is that there's an unlimited choices of people that do what you do. And because people think that, then they see there's very little value in you specifically. And because they think that, then they try to make things all about price, which is the last thing you want it to be in a real business. You want it to be about value. Well, what customers are doing is saying, hey, no, there's another 12 of you just like you. There's nothing special about you. And that reduces your ability to be effective, to be an effective salesperson, business owner. It's hard to provide value in that market. So everybody's in the business of promoting. And because of technology, because technology has made most things easy to do or easy to learn about, everybody is re-evaluating how they spend their advertising dollar. If you're not, you should be. If you've been in business longer than 4 years, right? If you've been in business longer than 4 years, you probably should take a look at where your advertising dollar is going, where your marketing dollars are going, and what's the return on that. Because this is a simple chart to just show you, generally speaking, that in most cases, most of the traditional ways of advertising are seeing a decline in the amount of money people spending in that one particular avenue. They're still doing a mix of these, but they're doing less of most things. For example, print advertising or advertising in a phone book. Are people still putting ads in a phone book? Probably. Some people still are. But when's the last time you looked in a phone book? When's the last time you picked one up for a product or service? Most people can't ever remember. I mean, I still get them. It seems like I'm getting more phone books than ever now. Every time I look up my driveway, I see another one in a little plastic bag. And I can't even tell you the last time I even opened up the plastic bag. You know, so that's a lot of money. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's like that. You know, they're printing these books by the millions. And that's a lot of money that's not effectively being used. So same with newspapers. We see now that I saw an article that said something like 40 out of the top 100 newspapers were in financial hard times. And in fact, many of them, since the time I saw that article, have now gone out of business. And these are newspapers that were staples to not only their community, but their regionals, their parts of the world, out of business. Why? Because of the same thing on this chart. Because advertisers changed where they were putting their advertising dollars. They stopped advertising in newspapers because they thought their perception was that a lot of people no longer read newspapers. And when you take away the advertising dollars, you take away that business. So those newspapers now, many of those newspapers are gone, out of business. And the ones that are left are dramatically trying to redefine their business. Now, as of a month ago, they might have gotten a shot in the arm with the new iPad, the new Apple iPad. One thing about that, if you haven't seen that, it's going to be related to what we do, but because of the iPad, people, the digital version of those newspapers now have a second chance at life. Because now people can quickly get those newspapers wherever they are. They can do lots of things with those newspapers that they could never do before. Search, save, share. Imagine how functional it is. A digital newspaper now is much more functional than a paper one. You see an article you like, you see a word in it that you don't understand, or a name or something you want to remember. Now you can highlight it, save it, look it up, share it with friends. You can act on it. It's actionable. That's going to give newspapers a shot in the arm if they adopt now to go digital. Newspaper, radio and television. Technology has actually increased their functionality, but the result of that has decreased, in some cases, their effectiveness. What do I mean by that? Well, I remember, because I'm not an old guy, but I'm not an infant either. But I remember when we only had 3 stations that we could get real clear on my television channel. And if we went out and turned the rabbit ear antennas, we might pull in another couple of stations. So there are basically 5 TV stations that had 90% of America's attention all the time. Now, some many years later, in my house, just me alone, I have almost 3,000 television channels on my TV. And my TV is provided to me by my phone company. So that earthquake of technology shaking things up has rippled through my house. Now I love it as a consumer. I love the fact that I can see all these different channels and see all these different shows and all this different stuff. In fact, I love the fact that you can watch whatever you want to watch whenever you want to watch it. But you, the marketer that's trying to get your message to me, good luck guessing what show I'm watching and when. I don't even know. Honestly, I couldn't even tell you what network time or channel my favorite shows come on. I don't even know, because when I'm ready to go watch them, I go get them. I go search them. I watch a lot of TV now online. So because of that, it's hard. The effectiveness of marketing on television and radio has just become more difficult. It's more powerful, but it's more difficult to access that power. I saw an article that said just last year there were 10,000 new internet radio stations created. 10,000. The good news, right, for us as listeners is, if I want to listen to Latin music, I can listen to Latin music from Latin America right now. In fact, I can listen to it on my phone now. Internet radio is now accessible on your cell phone. You click a button and now I'm listening to a station, which is great, right? But it's also a challenge. Because if I'm now a local person trying to run an ad on my radio about my business, how do I even get to you? How do I get to you? It's a challenge. So what we've seen, the byproduct of all of this is most people, they're still spending money on advertising. Most people that are really in business know that if you're not in the business of advertising and promotion your business, you're not really in business. You're kind of just marking time, waiting to close your doors up. So people are still advertising. They're just scrambling trying to figure out what's the best thing to do. And generalizing, most people are just shifting their dollars from everything that's not related to the internet to things that are related to the internet. Why? Well, because the internet is efficient, it's fast, it's relatively inexpensive, in many cases it's almost free, and it's everywhere. It's everywhere you go. There's wireless in this restaurant, I'm sure. If not, you can access the wireless from the cell phone companies here in this restaurant. I have wireless on my phone. Wireless is everywhere. Internet is everywhere. Internet is almost like electricity and oxygen. It's just everywhere. And it's much like oxygen, it's becoming a necessity to the life of your business. So what we're going to talk about now is specifically how to leverage this, how to go to this sweet spot of marketing, and how to leverage the internet in the best interest of your business. And we're going to focus on how to do it as close to free or as close to nothing, without you having to have a budget as possible. Because everybody knows we're in a tough economy. Everybody knows that it's a challenge to do things that you didn't budget for. So part of the strategy should be, and we encourage this, is, okay, how can I get the biggest return on nothing, or the closest thing to nothing, and then start from there? How can I do just a little bit, but get the possibility of a massive return? That's called leverage. It's the thing that we want in our financial life. It's the thing that we want in our influence life. And it's also the thing we want in our business life. So we're going to show you how to get some leverage in your marketing. So what we're going to talk about today, these are just some news articles that kind of back up what I was saying about the newspapers going out of business. In fact, the paper world has been so dramatically hit by technology and the sudden awareness of everybody being planet friendly and not wanting to cut down trees and all these different things. When you add it all up, even the post office is now saying, wow, I don't know what my future is. I heard on the radio 2 months ago that they were thinking about stopping mail delivery on Saturdays. They're just cutting out Saturdays. That the news delivery, I don't know if it was local or national, But there's a big debate, national, there's a big debate going on right now whether or not mail delivery might just become a Monday through Friday thing. You know, many other people are predicting that mail delivery will only be for things that you just can't deliver any other way. Because most people I know now don't even check, including myself, don't even check your mailbox every day anymore. It's just why? I mean, whatever bills you have come in, usually can come in electronic. Very few people write letters that are, and very few people write letters that are important. 80% of what you get in the mail goes straight from your mailbox to your second mailbox, right? The trash can. I mean, straight. It doesn't even take a little detour for you to look at. A lot of things don't even get opened. So what we're talking about is that chart of people realizing that, and they're repositioning how they'll spend their money. Next. So, another newspaper going out of business. Go ahead, I keep going. Another newspaper going out of business. All right, next slide. Now, so even though this shift is happening, most people are still caught in the tail end of it. They're still doing a massive amount of direct mail. They're still doing all these other stuff, not because they feel that that's the best thing they can do. It's more because they feel that that's the only thing they really know how to do, and they talk themselves into believing that it's worth it. You know, I'm a brand new restaurant in town, and I just opened up, and there are 100,000 people within 10 miles of me. If I could muster the money to get together, to drop mail, to send mail to people in a 10-mile radius of me, that's 50,000 people. And all I really need is 0.110000001%, if I get 5% of those people to come by and check out my restaurant, wow, I'm going to have to expand. So I do it. But what the reality of it is that what we just talked about. 90% of that stuff doesn't even get looked at. It goes straight to to mailbox number 1 and straight to mailbox number 2. And the stuff that does stop, you have about, if you're good at it, you might get a 1%, 2% open rate. 1% or 2% open rate. But this is to everybody. This is to people, so if you have a great new steakhouse, part of that 1% that opens up your mail may be vegetarians. So even part of the people that look at what you have may not even be relevant to your business. If you're selling big appliances or automotives or whatever it is, there's a percentage of people that you will hit with a mass mailing that will never, ever buy your product. So those numbers don't even help you. Those open numbers don't even help you. What would make more sense is if you could just somehow have a magical ball, a crystal ball, and I have a new pancake restaurant, and it would be great if I could send mail to the people, to the pancake lovers. If I could just send mail to the pancake lovers, then I would get a better chance of people opening my mail. Believe it or not, we're going to get you close to that today. So this is just a background and some of the cost that goes into that simple idea that I just talked myself into doing. Hey, sending out all this mail and relying upon, a couple of percent. Well, I can't just send out anything. It has to represent my business. So that means either I have to pay somebody or incur the expense of having artwork done, printing costs done. It has to get there. And unfortunately, the post office is saying, if I want to mail 100 pieces of mail, I actually have to pay postage on all 100 pieces. I know that sounds like a common sense thing, but that's not how it works in the digital world sometimes. In the digital world sometimes, you only pay for the people that actually take action on things you do. It's almost like you being able to mail everybody in your environment, in your neighborhood, your zip code, but you only pay postage on the people that actually open and read your mail. Completely different paradigm shift, right? So this is just to remind you of what people are doing today. So if you're doing this, one is I don't want you to feel so bad, because everybody's still kind of doing this. They spend $1,500, $2,000 just to get this mail to go out, knowing that even if it does work, they're only going to get 1 or 2% return. That means that, let me flip that around. Some people hear that and they say, yeah, I can kind of live with that. Well, let me flip it around a little bit. What I'm saying is, people are doing things that they know before they even write the check, that 98% of what they're about to pay to have made is going to mailbox number 2. It's going straight to the trash can. 98% is going straight to the trash can. Now, most people would consider that wasteful. When you think about it, it's just wasteful. So we know that that's going to go away. We know we can't have that much waste in a process, especially in a world where everybody, especially the younger generations, are saying, you know, green, 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 green. And then here you are as a business person doing something where 98% is pure waste. Wasted paper to print it on, wasted gas to deliver it, all this stuff that's going to make you seem not too green. Not too green. So we know that the clock's ticking on that whole model. Next slide. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly walk you through a better idea. We like to focus on a very practical, easy to understand, highly effective approach to solving this challenge. And believe it or not, it's email. So we're going to talk about a way to start with email and turn that whole scenario upside down, completely turn it around. Why are we going to start with email? Well, because remember we said the internet's everywhere? Well, if you have access to the internet, if you personally have access to the internet, I can guarantee you that you personally have an email address. Why? Because it comes along with the access to the internet. You can't get internet access without them giving you an email account. I don't care if it's Verizon, your cable company, whoever it is, they give you one. Outside of that, there's a host of different services out there that you can go get your own email address. Outside of that, everybody you know has an email address. So if you don't have an email address, you're going to be the odd person out. And at some point, there's going to be too much social pressure for you not being able to communicate with any of your family, friends, business contacts. The point is we know you have an email address. We also know we don't have to train you on how to use email. You already know. You've already been trained on how to use email. So has everybody else you know, and all your customers and all your potential customers. This is one thing that everybody knows how to do. It's like cutting on a television set. They know how to cut the on button. They know how to open up the email, type a message, and hit send. They also know how to hit forward to a friend. If you've ever gotten those jokes that you're tired of getting, right? So everybody's always been trained on how to use email. So we're going to talk about how to make it more effective. Next slide. Now, there's a lot of research that will back up that email is still the most overall effective form of communication because of some of the things I just talked about. So we're going to actually jump into a scenario, and I'm going to walk you through. Next slide. Because I want you to understand how this works. Now, what we're talking about is legitimate email communication, not spam. We're going to walk you through a process where you're sending out an email to people who know who you are, or people that have requested one. We're not talking about spam. Spam is the enemy of good internet marketing, believe it or not. Spam is the enemy of good email marketing. And spam's getting, there's probably more people, for as much spam as we get now, it's getting harder and harder and harder for spammers to spam now because of a lot of things that's coming, because of technology again. There are a lot of things that can detect spam, and it's just making it more complicated. So spam is, I'm optimistic. I don't think we're going to have a spam problem in a handful of years. I just think that's going to eventually go away. So next slide. So this is what we want to walk you through. I'm just going to walk you through an example. I'm going to walk you through a generic example. As I do, I want you to insert yourself as the star of this show. Insert yourself, your business. I want you to look at this from a first-person point of view. So I'm going to give you the hypothetical, generic situation, but I want you to look at it from the perspective of your own existing business. And we're going to do a very simple thing. We're going to start with something that's very powerful and very common. We're going to start with a newsletter. A digital newsletter. Remember how I was saying earlier about how a digital magazine is going to be much more functional than a regular one? Well, so is a digital newsletter. It's actually the same. It's going to be the same. It's kind of like a magazine, TV show, so a lot of things rolled into one. But I'm going to just walk you through a scenario. So imagine that you created, first of all, outside of technology, just a really, 10 seconds on just some really core fundamental business stuff. You as a business need to know who you are. I mean, specifically, you need to know what makes you special as a business. If you can't answer what makes you special as a business, you don't have a market, you don't have a message. You don't have anything worth talking about. So step number one, you need to understand who it is you are and what it is you do that makes you special, even if it's in your own mind. I mean, the only point you're in business is because you believe you can do something relatively good, special, different than the next guy. That's the only reason why you're in business. So you need to be really clear on that. And what would be really helpful, if you can take that value, you can call that value, and if you can break it down into a couple of the key different points. So as opposed to just saying, I'm a great cook, well, what do you cook well? What are you a great cook at? Or what makes you a great cook? If you can break those down into just a handful of things, this is the foundation we're going to build on. This is the foundation we're going to help you build a brand on. So let's imagine, if you don't, that you have these 5 things, or these handful of things, 5 to 10 or dozen things that you do exceptionally well as a business. Now let's jump back into technology. So we have this newsletter. So imagine that you're having this newsletter. This newsletter is completely customizable. So remember those dollars that you were spending for somebody to create that thing that you were going to send out in the newspaper? Well, this is the good news. You could probably still use that same thing you've already paid for. That same graphic that you thought would be great for people to see that you sent out in the mail, you can still use that same work. You don't have to redo that necessarily. Sometimes you can just reuse it, right? Because as a digital, for them to print it, it probably started off digital and you went backwards. You had to make it digital and then you went backwards and had them turn it into paper. Well, we're going to say keep the digital version and use that as the design of your newsletter. Now, you're going to have a newsletter. It can look and function however you want. You can have multiple tabs or multiple sections. This is where you still need to be creative. You need to come up with a newsletter that reflects who it is you are, that looks like the spirit of your business, that feels like you want people to feel when they think about your business. Now, let's just imagine that you see here, you see a lot of text here. We all know that television is probably still the most impactful communication vehicle, right? We're all trained, we've all been trained all of our lives, actually, to pay attention to TV. In fact, you walk in a room with a TV on, everything in your body probably makes you look at it, whether you want to or not. It's kind of, we built to do that. The byproduct of that is we've been trained to watch video. So it's no wonder that video is exploding on the internet. It's no wonder that there are, I think, 100 billion video viewed a month now or a week, one of those two. It's a huge number. It's no wonder now that there's more video consumed now on the internet, especially by younger folks. This is for younger folks, which is even more staggering stat, is that last year or the year before now, time's moving so fast, that it was the first time ever in the history that young people consumed more video from the internet than they did from TV. I remember when I was growing up, the big concern was, are kids watching too much TV? Well, now, kids watch less, they watch more internet than they watch TV. Think about that. Think about what that's going to mean in the minds of future buyers and everything. So we're going to encourage you to employ video in your newsletter. See, that's something you can do with a digital newsletter that you can't do with a paper newsletter. It can actually talk to people. It can actually be a video newsletter. Make sure you cut your cell phones off. So it can actually be, you can actually have a newsletter. So imagine a newsletter showing up to somebody, and you or your spokesperson or your best communicator, whoever it is just introducing themselves to you. Introducing themselves to you. So, hi, my name is Earl Mann. Let me tell you about my great business. Or let me tell you about my business. This is what, remember how I told you had to be clear on what your purpose is and what your value is? It should already start right there in the first minute or so of you talking to people. Let me tell you what makes us different. Because that's what people are going to want to know, and that's what you want them to know. What makes you different? You don't want to just say, hi, my name is Earl Mann, I'm in a restaurant, I'm in your neighborhood, blah, 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 blah. You want to say why you're in business. Just tell them, whatever the answer is. Whatever the answer to the question is why you are in business, fill in the blank, you should tell people that. Because that's meaningful. It should be meaningful and valuable. Hi there, my name is Earl Mann. I just opened up a new restaurant, and I believe we have the best breakfasts, you know, whatever it is. Whatever it is that you specialize in, you go through that. So imagine that coming up, and you imagine for each section of your newsletter, you have, remember those, I told you to break out your value into 5 or 6 or a dozen different things? Imagine that being in your newsletter. All these little different things. Well, first of all, when it shows up, now this newsletter can be sent out like an email. So that means people can get this wherever they are, whenever that is. You don't have to try to catch them on TV at a certain time. You don't have to try to guess, you know, where car's going to be parked so they can see your sign. It's wherever they are, because that's where their email is. It's with them. So when they open this up and they see this, first of all, you now, remember we're going to talk about how do you separate yourself from the pack, how do you be remembered, how do you be noticed? Well, how many newsletters from your competition have you seen where they're talking to people? Probably none. Probably none. So instantly you've separated yourself. Now that you have their attention, have something to say. And because this is digital, you can split that up and organize it and make it look however you want it to look, right? You can have all these different things. You can break up, you know, what you do, what you care about. It's completely up to you how you organize your content, but we highly encourage you to leverage video often. If for no other reason, because you know when people look at things and it says video here, everything in their body is going to be compelling them to click it. Now, you have a minute or so to keep their attention, but that's a minute or so you wouldn't even have when you sent mail to them in their mailbox. Remember, you didn't get the minute. It went from mailbox to trash can. You didn't even get the minute. Now at least you have the minute, and guess what you have in that minute? Your best foot forward. And what I mean by that is either your best message or your best messenger. Right? If you don't know what your best message is, at least put your best messenger in the window pane. The person that people seem to like, the person that can do it the best, the person that's funny, or the person that's whatever it is, at least start there. Why? Because at least you got their attention. You made a little mark. You became memorable in that moment. Next slide. So now imagine that you're going to see from a lot of leading companies newsletters coming out over and over and over now. Why? Because it's just so effective to do. Right? But you can do the exact same thing. So here you have big companies, Sony, Southwest. You know these companies' names. You know these brands. These are brands that arguably, you might argue, don't have a brand issue. Everybody knows who Sony is, right? Everybody knows who Southwest is. How many people know who you are? So if it's good enough for them, maybe it's good enough for you. And we're going to show you how simple this stuff is to do. So next slide. Next slide. Lots of companies, Apple, everybody, all these companies, these are just examples of newsletters. You're going to see them more and more and more. In fact, next slide, in fact, some of these have been coming to you now so often that you almost look forward to them coming. You recognize almost subconsciously and anticipate their arrival. What I mean by that is, for months now, you've been getting a newsletter from Best Buy. And you don't really pay attention to it. You don't really pay attention to it. Then all of a sudden, your TV is starting to flicker and you start to have that conversation. You know, honey, I'm thinking about going and getting that high-def TV. I even heard there are 3D TVs now. And subconsciously you remember, well, I just wait and see what they have on special at Best Buy. I get stuff from them all the time. So you're almost looking for it. And then it shows up, and now the timing is right. So what we just did in that example was huge. This was impossible to do up until now being the digital world. What I just described was you breaking through time and space, appearing out of nowhere, just materializing yourself right there in the magic moment called the perfect time. The other way, what your challenge was before was how do you get your mail to show up when the customer is ready to buy? How do you make that TV commercial show up in the house of customers that are looking to buy a refrigerator now? It's almost impossible to do that. So what you do is you just gamble that if you hit enough people, that in that small percentage of people that even see it, there will be an even smaller percentage of people that are in the market to buy what you have now. Those numbers get dwindled down to very, very small fractions of numbers, percentages. What we just described was your ability to show up in the mind of the customer right on time. Now, they may not even notice that you've been coming to them every single week. They just pay attention to it the week they happen to want what it is you have. Suddenly, boom, there you are. Oh, great, perfect. This is just what I was looking for. That's how it happens. So we're going to talk about a simple solution, a simple service now of how you can do this whole scenario. Now, let me tell you how sophisticated it is. So we talked about the easy front end. Now, everything I'm talking about is point-and-click technology. If you can kind of move a mouse around and click the right button, you're 80% there, okay? So, remember that newsletter that went out? Imagine this. I'm going to walk you through a whole little, show you how all is tied together. Now, everything I'm about to explain in this example can be done from that thing that you already trained on how to use, your email account. So everything I'm going to walk you through in this little quick example, just imagine that this is all a part of just how your email system works, starting with the ability to create that newsletter in your email account. You can put a little, you can create a little, you know how you have contact databases, what do you call it, address books in your email address? Imagine now that you can have multiple address books, right? You can create them, and they can mean different things. So if I'm in the business, you can create an address book called new customer or long-time customer, old customer. So you can start to segment your address book to have different meanings. Now imagine that you can create a little form in your email so that every time somebody fills out this form, their name automatically goes into the right address book. Now imagine that you could take this form and put it any place on the internet. Any place on the internet. So if they fill out that form, their name automatically goes to an address book. Let me be very clear on that. So let's just say you had a form, you had an address book called refrigerator prospects. And you created a form tied to that address book. And now you can put on your website, looking for a new refrigerator, fill out this form. They fill out this form, their name goes to an address book called refrigerator prospects. Everybody with me? Okay, great. Now imagine that you could, remember I told you that you could sit down and you break your value proposition or what it is you're good at it up into a handful or a dozen different ideas and things? Well, now you take each one of those ideas and you make a little newsletter, a news article about it, a little news article about it. If quality is big for you, don't just say, I'm big on quality, expand on it a little bit, right? Make a little video about what quality means to you. Let me tell you what quality means to me and my team. Let me tell you what customer service means to me, why it's so important to us. Everybody understand that? So now you have a dozen different things you talked about. Make each one of those a letter, digital letter. Now imagine that you can make each one of those a digital letter and put it in this email account. Now you could tell the email account, whenever somebody fills out this form, I want you to immediately send them letter number 1. Then I want you to wait a week and send them letter number 2. And I want you to wait a week and letter number 3. And this can go on for the whole year. So what did we just do with your email account? Couple of things. One is you've condensed a whole bunch of your activity into a couple of hours of work. You sat down, you figured out your brand, you wrote these different letters, you put them in a system, you set it up. But what you've done to the market is you make yourself constantly there. So you don't have to think about sending out an email once a week to do it. You don't have to think about, oh, I need to send out an email telling everybody about my customer service this week. You sit down and you set it up, and now it's in place. Everybody understand that? It's automated. So now what happens with this email account is, imagine this. So now somebody gets a newsletter from you, has all these different things. They see the things that says video, they click on it because it's a reflexive response now. They click on it, they watch it, they actually like what you say. They can do a couple of different things. All of them are good for your business. One, they can save it for later. Oh man, that looks great. I'm going to come back to that. 2, and this is a huge one, they can share it with other people that they know would be interested in what you just said. You can't even put a value on that. If you're in the business of selling trucks, and you send somebody this email and you got this great special on trucks, and my brother's looking for a truck, you don't know who my brother is, and you don't know he's looking for a truck. I do. But I can connect that dot for you just by clicking the forward button. Hey, Eric, I thought you might want to check this out. I know you're looking for a truck. That didn't cost you anything. You don't even know me. You don't owe me a referral fee. You didn't train me on your product. None of that stuff. You just sent me information, and I zoomed it in for you. I targeted it in for you. That's called viral marketing. That's a part of the digital world. So imagine that. So it gets to them. He sees it. He fills out a form. Yeah, I'm interested in a truck because it says for more information on this great deal, fill out the form. He fills out the form. His name just got added to your truck prospect database. And immediately he gets sent a video email from your best foot forward, right, person saying, hi, my name is Earl Mann from such and such, your local such and such business. And I see you're interested. You know what they filled the form out about. I see you're interested in our deal on trucks. Well, this is the great news. We got blah, 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 financing, whatever the thing is. Come on in to see me. This is my phone number. I would love to tell you more about it. Let me ask you a question. What's the chances of him remembering that person? More than they remembered the ad that's in the newspaper about your competitor's truck for sale, or the TV commercial that's running, or the thing they hear on the radio. Which one stands out more? That one. Without question. But this is the thing. Built-in follow-up. You set the frequency, right? So maybe 2 days from now, he gets another newsletter, another email. Hey, this is just a reminder. Just want to let you know, Wednesday's my freest day. That's the best time to come in when you won't be bothered by a lot of customers. We can sit down and have a lot of time to chat about what's going on. Now what did I do? What I just did was huge. What I did was reach out to a customer automatically, followed up with them automatically, and I'm now filling a part of my business day that might normally be a little dead. I'm pushing traffic. I'm trying to normal out my marketing activity. So if Wednesdays, for whatever reason in my business, aren't the best days in the world, well, great. I'm now trying to make it a great day. I'm turning lemons into lemonade, right? I'm using the fact that there's not going to be a lot of people here as a reason they should come to see me on Wednesday. They'll see the value in that. I'll see the value in that. It's a win-win-win. Everybody see that? 3 days later, maybe it's a reminder. Hey, just reminder that there's only a week left on this special. By the way, I thought you might want to see what the Consumer Reports have to say about this truck. Click on that link. Everybody see how that works? This is the magic of all of this. While all this automated stuff is going on, everything is being monitored. It's like you have a virtual manager in there, just watching everything. Watching who it goes to, watching who opens it up, watching who clicks on what link. You got a virtual manager in there. You don't have to pay for them. They're just in there. They're in the product. They're a digital ghost, but they're in there working for you. And all you do is you come in and you click a report button and you see everything that's going on. Compare this to the way you constantly do it now with direct mail and all these other things. You can see when you send it out, how many people got it, who they were, what time they opened it up, because maybe that makes a difference in your business. You want to know what time are people kind of looking at stuff. What they clicked on. This is huge, right? Because if you send out a newsletter with a lot of different things, you may want to know specifically what they were interested in. If they clicked on, if you sent out this big newsletter on trucks and all this different stuff, but you had this one little article on the side about trade-ins, and a bunch of people clicked on that, then you know, okay, these people, for whatever reason, are interested in the trade-in aspect of my business. That gives you background information that you can act on. So now you can pick up the phone. If on your phone, on your form, when you said fill out this form, you put phone number, well, you have that now phone number. You can either click on it if you're digital like that, or you can dial it if you're not, and call them. And say, hey, now it's targeted follow-up. Hey, Roy, this is Earl Mann. I'm just doing some follow-up because we take follow-up serious, customer service serious as a customer, a little branding. We take customer service serious as a business. Hey, I see that you were interested in our follow-up program. I just wanted to know, did you have any specific questions that I could help you with on that? Now, am I being helpful? Of course I'm being helpful. Am I being relevant? Yeah, I'm being relevant. How do I know I'm relevant? Because he clicked on the thing that said what I'm talking about. I know that's what they're interested in. You can't do this outside of the digital world.